The Cobra AeroJet Driver. I'm quite excited to bring you this video because I've had the chance to take this driver out on the golf course, and I've got to say, fairway finder, you can't really miss. I've brought them here to the studio to get some numbers, to give you a bit of an idea of what Cobra is saying about them. I'm going to go through a fitting process into the standard head, but I'm also going to put it up against the old Cobra F8 driver. This driver looks and feels actually very similar to the new AeroJet, and I just wanted to see, have we come on much when it comes to the yardage and numbers on these clubs? First impressions looking down at the new AeroJet driver. Slightly smaller looking profile when we look at the LS version. That's the low spin model, which is consistent to what you'd expect to see with other manufacturers out there. But interestingly, the AeroJet LS version is actually a 460cc head. It's just slightly different in its profile. It's a little bit squatter from front rail to sort of back edge, and then it's gone slightly deeper in that kind of face there. So slightly different look of what we're getting out of the standard and the max range, which look absolutely identical when you look down on them. Looking down on them right now, I have no idea which is the max and which is the standard. Both kind of stretch back a little bit more, bring that MOI a little bit further away from the face, giving me more stability when I'm coming into those shots. Not looking for the stability, let's say, out of the LS, because weight being pushed way forward against that face, CG close to the face, it's going to give me that lower spin that we're looking for out of this driver. So when I flip the club over and look at all three models, Cobra giving us a new power bridge technology. What is that? Well, it's a 13-gram weight suspended in this head, closer to the face, to make that CG just a little bit lower, a little bit closer to the face to reduce those spin numbers, but also give us maximum speed off the club face. And Cobra saying that this power bridge technology was critical to be able to enable them to be able to put in a new power shell face insert, which is a first for Cobra. And this power shell face insert enables us to have a larger sweet spot, giving us more ball speed across the face. And to run in conjunction with this power shell, the insert has a new hot face created by artificial intelligence. We've heard that a number of times now in the golf industry, but what they've done is they've created this pattern on the face, which is kind of like a rippling effect, which enables them to have like little hot spots across the face to maintain good ball speed with those off-centered strikes. And visually, when you look down at this driver, you can see carbon printed all over the top of the head and actually on the sole as well. So the idea of that is that Cobra just trying to save as much weight as they possibly can to deliver that weight into different places around the head, again, to increase MOI, pushing CG around the head, to change up those spin numbers just that little bit, and also launch. And finally, Cobra have also changed the shaping of this driver with a little raised skirt at the back edge of this driver. The idea of that is to improve aerodynamics, to maintain that fast swing speed into that ball. But with three heads on offer from Cobra, who are these drivers actually designed for? Well, we've got the LS version, the low spin model. Now, this is designed to be lower launching, lower spinning, and maybe like a neutral to fade bias in its flight. Then we've got the standard model, and this one's kind of like a medium launch, medium spin type of driver, going to fit into most people's games. And then we've got the max version, which is designed to be kind of like a higher launch, maybe a little bit higher in that spin, making it a little bit more stable with that higher MOI, and then maybe more of a draw bias. So if you're somebody who's quite a powerful hitter, then the LS is probably going to suit more of your game. Then the standard head is going to fit into most people's games with a neutral type of flight. And then the max driver for those players that maybe want to see a little bit more draw on the shot, or those that tend to slice the ball fractionally, the max range is going to work nicely for you. But before we get into the actual fitting of the standard head for me and give you some numbers on that, I just want to put this new LS version up against the old F8. Now, this is a few generations old now, and it is the low spin version, it's the plus version. I just want to put them as a little head-to-head and give you some numbers on them. Now, the reason I've picked the F8 driver is because it is a few generations old now, but it does look very similar when you look down at the profile of them, probably from the shape of it and also from that carbon look. Well, giving you the numbers of the F8, ball speed off the club face, 152.8 mile an hour. If you compare that to the new AeroJet LS, we've got 155.2, so gaining just that little bit. There is one shot down there at the first shot that I hit with that F8, which gave me 147, so that's going to bring those numbers just down fractionally, but you can see definitely a few extra mile an hour off the club face from that new LS version. Launching them slightly differently, so launching a little lower out of the LS with 13.8 out of the F8 compared to 12.6 out of the AeroJet LS, so slightly lower. If we then look at the spin numbers, I'm getting 2,190 spin out of the F8, which is good, that's tidy, but that is ultimately their low spin model at the time. If you compare that to the new low spin version in the AeroJet, we've got 1,960, and if you listen to the brief of what Cobra's saying, definitely looking to reduce those spin numbers, pushing that CG forward, definitely changing it up a little bit just to bring that spin right down. And then if we look at peaking out 35 yards high with the F8, and then 31 yards high out of the AeroJet LS, so definitely lower. And then look at the distance here, we've got 264 carry out of the F8 compared to 271 carry out of that LS. That LS is a bit of an animal. But as always, when it comes to drivers, it's really important that you go through a fitting process with them. And I'm just going to hit some shots now and give you some numbers of what we get when we move the lofts around in the loft sleeve of this driver. So for this fitting, I've gone for their standard head, which is probably the driver that I would probably go into if I was going to play this driver. Starting off with the 10 degree, then I had a 9 degree, then I had it in 8 degree. Ball speed off the club face from the 10 degree and the 9 degree, exactly the same, 154 mile an hour. Just creeping up a little bit more when I go into that 8 degree of 155 mile an hour. If we then go to launch numbers, 10 degrees I've got is at 13.8 degrees in launch, and then the 9 degree head I've got it at 13.2, and then the 8 degree head just launching a little bit lower at 12.9, so definitely seeing that launch come down fractionally. Then we look at the spin, and this is the interesting one. So 10 degree head, 2,766 revs, 9 degree head, 2,522 revs, and then the 8 degree head, 2,222 revs on an average. So again, we're seeing the launch come down, we're seeing the spin numbers coming down also as you come down the lofts. Then we go peak heights, again, exactly the same, 41 yards high with the 10, 37 yards high with the 9, and 35 yards high with the 8. And then ultimately, which is what it all comes down to and why you should go for this fit, is 250 yards out of the 10 degree head on an average carry compared to 254 out of the 9 degree head, and then coming in there at 262 yards with that 8 degree head, just getting out there just that little bit hotter, spinning just a little bit lower, and then ultimately carrying just that little bit further. So there you go, so much packed into one video. We've done a compare to the old F8, we've done a fitting in these drivers, and actually you can see that there's some great numbers coming out of these clubs. I have to say, when I tested this club on the golf course, I just couldn't miss fairways. It felt so stable, and definitely a club that you'll want to get out and test on the golf course. You can see the improvements coming from the F8 into the AeroJet, from those spin numbers, from those ball speed numbers, definitely an improvement there, and obviously lots of tech going into these Cobra drivers. Cobra never afraid to do that as well. Looks wise, love the look of these drivers, just the shop appeal from the bottom of the driver and then looking down on top of them. Love that little bit of white lipstick around the back and that carbon look on top. But I'd like to hear what you think. Are they a driver that you will consider testing for 2023? I'd like to hear down there in the comments. And don't forget, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again very soon.